Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Eclipse webinar series. My name is Jake Apke. I am the trading training consultant here at Orion. Today, we are focused on the Eclipse trade tools. This is session 4 of our Eclipse webinar series. There's a total of 6 sessions. So if you've missed any of the first 3, they are available to watch at any time out on orion.com/events. It's also where you can go if you are not registered for the final 2 sessions. Next week, we are talking all about cash management. And then in 3 weeks, and then in 2 weeks, we are going to be talking about trade review and trade submission. So before we get started on our content, let me go over a couple of things with you. Sorry, skipped ahead a couple of slides there all the way to the very end. Give me just a moment. Let me rewind back 1 second. Apologize for that. My mouse got a little bit ahead of me. Let me pull it back up now. All right, as we said, trade tools. So before we get started, a couple of things just to go over with you guys. So first and foremost, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We will have about 10 minutes or so here at the end to help review and answer any questions you have. Also, if there are any questions that we don't have time to get to, I will be able to follow up and send you answers in a case as well. So don't feel like any questions you have we won't be able to get to. We certainly will. As far as related content, I mentioned the orion.com/events. Definitely go out there, check out the rest of the webinars in this series. But also, if you are someone who is newer to Eclipse and Orion, there's a lot of great resources out there for some of the other areas within Orion to get up to speed on the different systems and apps. And lastly, everyone who attends the webinar, you will get an email with the link to watch it once it is available, sometime hopefully today or tomorrow. Otherwise, as we said, all webinars are always going to be available out on the website. So you can go and watch them at any time or direct any of your coworkers to them if they need to watch them as well. All right, as well as our webinar series, we also have Eclipse University. So our next one right now is in a little over a month and a half on May 12th in Omaha. So the biggest advantage to joining an Eclipse University over coming through these webinars, these webinar series are really meant to be somewhat of a basic new user experience. So really just kind of walking through the Eclipse system so that you can become familiar with it, learn about the ins and outs and where you would go. Honestly, the biggest advantage to Eclipse University is we're going to cover some topics a bit more in depth than we do on these webinar series. It also gives you the opportunity to meet one-on-one with our SME experts for some consults. So if you have any burning issues, questions, processes, things you just need to meet with someone one-on-one to dive in, we can do that. And the other one is the ability for engagement and interaction. This webinar is a great way for me to spend almost an hour just talking to you, where you only have the option to chat in a question back. Events like our Eclipse University are really great for you to be able to ask questions, drive that engagement. It really helps us to go down those rabbit holes of things that maybe a bunch of people were wondering but didn't know to ask. Eclipse is very unique. And how you want to set it up and how you use it. It's the kind of system where 10 people could ask a question and I might have 7 different answers depending on how they use it. So in the webinars, we try to give you as much broad information, but at Eclipse University, we can definitely drill down into how you use Eclipse specifically to make sure we answer any questions or help with any processes. So got about a week, sometime next week should be April 1st. Hard to believe it, but yeah, sign up now, get in early bird special. Otherwise, May 12th, that is our next one in Omaha. And the last thing before we get started is to just be aware that there may be some things that you see me showing in Eclipse that you may not have access to. So there are 2 potential reasons for that. One is it might just be something depending on your role and your permissions, you may not have access to either a specific trade tool or maybe some of the preferences we look at. So first and foremost, if you have any areas you are not seeing, reach out to your firm admin, see if there's just something in your permissions that need to be updated to give you access. If you guys aren't sure, reach out to the SME trading team. We can definitely help you make sure the roles are set up so you can see what you need to. The other item is there may or may not be some things that you're going to see that I, as an Orion admin, have access to that you do not. As far as the trade tools, it shouldn't really matter. You should have the ability to access all the trade tools, but we're also going to look at excuse me, some preferences that partner with those trade tools. So there could potentially be some preferences in there that you see that you just don't have access to, that are only available on the Orion end, that we can turn on or off for you. So just be aware, everything you can't see, some of it may be intentional, some of it may not be. Reach out if you have any questions about getting access to something that you saw that you think you should. Okay, as I mentioned, today we're going to talk about trade tools. So I'm going to walk through basically all the main trade tools in Eclipse, just kind of explain what they are, when you might use them, some nuance or a best practice if it's available. One of them specifically is the tax loss harvesting. So that's a tool that has some specific parameters that help fuel it. So we will look at that. And then really, again, as I said, some of the preferences for individual trade tools, just so you can know, are there preferences that you want to set up so every time you run a trade tool it behaves a certain way, or there's also the options for when you run it as a one-off, you want it to do different than you might normally run it. So as we jump in here, I want you guys to realize and think about there's our process. So this really relates to what we're going to talk about today and then in 2 weeks. So there's a bigger overall process than just the trading process, but I want to focus just on the actual logistics of trades in Eclipse. When we think about the entire trading process, the very, very first steps are more so on you, the advisor's end, when you're going through and reviewing potentially what are accounts I need to trade. We're not looking at that. We're assuming I either have an account I'm ready to trade, or today is my quarterly rebalance day, whatever it is. So we're going to break it into trade creation. That is all today. That is how do I use the tools to actually create the orders. And then in 2 weeks, we are going to focus on the trade review and the trade submission part of the process. So once you've used the tool and you've got orders created, what do you do now? How do you make sure the orders are getting to the custodians, but also making sure that the orders are the correct orders? So again, today, mostly just the trade creation, focusing on the tools you're going to use to get the orders created in the system before you can get them sent. Now, this is a really just quick breakdown really of all the individual trade tools that are available in the system. So if we look at the different columns here, so the first one we're talking about portfolio level. So it's letting you know those are tools that are trading at a portfolio level. So if you're unfamiliar, portfolios and accounts and their relationship, accounts come from Orion Connect into Eclipse. They are automatically put into a portfolio, or a firm might manually put them in if they have custom portfolios. But an account needs to be in a portfolio in order to be traded in Eclipse. So a tool like the Global Trades, you could run it on an entire portfolio, or you could run it on an individual account. There are some tools that can only be run at one level. So the trade to target, for instance, can only be run at the account level. So if you have multi-account portfolios, you cannot run it on the portfolio. You can only run it on an individual account. Same concept. The cash needs tool is a tool that is not available to be run on individual accounts. So if you have multi-account portfolios, you can only run it on the portfolio level. So that's the idea here between the portfolio level and the account level. It just shows you what has availability depending on the actual, whether you can run it at the account or the portfolio. There's few that don't have a box, more specifically the quick trade and the liquidate. Those can both be traded at those other levels. It's more so to delineate that those are special tools, and typically they're only going to be found in one place. The other option there you'll see is from the models grid. So that's just if I could go to the actual models grid to create, or access that trade tool. So if I wanted to rebalance an individual model, I could do it directly from that models grid. And then this last column, it's pretty special. As I said, it's available on the orders grid. So we're going to start with looking at the quick trade, because this is a tool that is only available on the orders grid. But this is a quick rundown, as I said, of all the trade tools that are really available in Eclipse. So from here, we are going to jump over into Eclipse and we are going to walk through all of the tools as they look there. So bear with me just a second as I get Eclipse pulled up for you.